Don't lie on me and
Yeah,
don't
Karen,
me.
we all were concerned, okay?
People judging me is the least of my worries. When have you ever known the grand dame to crumble? Never. And it ain't gonna happen. How many wonders are there in the world? 7? 7 wonders? I'm the 8th. Especially in this group. They are so obsessed. Don't give a. All right, so Mia, I think we only have 4.
Hello friends, I am sorry I am late, and I know I didn't do a video for last episode. Seems like nobody wants to work these days. Honestly, Halloween had just been Halloweening, and like work was working, and last episode was really good, but like we'll touch on it. We will. So we start off, the ladies are in the car on their way to Lake Norman, I think it was. It's in my notes somewhere. We'll get a correction later. Y'all know how I do. I really wasn't compelled by the like car storyline. So like they're in the cars and they're having these different conversations. That's something that I did note, like, because Mia was very specific about who goes in each car. So that was really interesting to me. Let's see if I can remember without going back to my notes. So in the first car, we've got Karen and Mia, obviously because they're talking about the issue. And then the next car, they talked about the issue. Let's kind of get these two birds, one stone. They talk about the issue, and then they also kind of talk about the whole, like, Jacqueline talking about Karen calling her drunk thing, which hasn't been addressed yet, so we're finally getting to that. In that next car, we have Wendy, Giselle, and then Jacqueline. And in that car on this episode, you know, they're talking about the situation as well. And Giselle was kind of weighing in. So it's interesting to see that dynamic because, again, this season, we get, you know, Giselle's apology tour. And I say it like that because I think she's doing a little bit better than that. I'm going to have to give credit where it's due. But also, she is still having some genuine conflicts with Karen, which I find to be refreshing. It doesn't seem like she's just coming in and softballing, and it doesn't feel overly produced. And we see more of that this episode. However, we get that contrast in the car because she's kind of giving her adverse opinion about the Karen thing. Jacqueline obviously is. And then Wendy's like, well, Karen's not here to defend herself, y'all, so let's not. And then in that next car, now, I mean, they really weren't, from what I remember talking about, much that was compelling, but I believe it was what, Kiarna, Jazzy, and Ashley. So I think I passed that pop quiz. Most interesting things, though, I guess I will say, came towards the end of the kind of ride back there. So we're getting this thing where we do hear just some foreshadowing, which we could have expected. Giselle saying she is going to have a conversation with Karen, and she does actually expect for that conversation to go well. I thought it was hilarious watching Wendy this whole episode talk about her birthday and how, like, it's about her, it's about her, it's about her. And I really wanted to give her the tourist trope because I'm a tourist, and we're going to talk about Karen being a tourist and seeing some quintessential tourist behavior. But she's not. She's really kind of more so on the cusp. But I think when I looked it up, Wendy's birthday is like May 20 something in the early 20th. And tourist season technically ends on May 20th. So she's really a Gemini, but she's kind of on the cusp. So I'm gonna kind of give it to her. But anywho, that being said, she's like, this weekend's about me. So like, get it out before my birthday, which is tomorrow. So Giselle's like, fine, I'll have a conversation with Karen. I expect her to be, you know, be open and be listening. Wendy then, though, and I'm like, where is this gonna go? But she brings up this conversation that she overheard over on the plane, where I guess we didn't get much context at all. I literally have question marks in my notes. But she says Jazzy called Jacqueline Mia's sidekick. They get into this thing, which I'm going to be honest before we go any further, and I don't know how much further I'm going to go on it. But I do feel like they produced this a bit much to make it seem like Jacqueline is obsessed with Mia, what we're going to start hearing. I don't know that I would say that. I don't know that I feel that way. I don't know that it's been presented to me. Obviously, the ladies are speaking from a perspective of knowing Jacqueline and filming with Mia. However, you know, sometimes with these shows, they really kind of push a narrative with the editing. And so that's how I feel about it, to be honest. And then the most interesting part to me was, you know, Jacqueline being in the car with Karen once again. And obviously Karen brought Stacey into the group. That's her friend. But Jacqueline letting Karen know basically the ladies spoke and they had a consensus that, you know, Stacey was not interesting. And it made me think back. I don't know if you guys have been watching Carlos King's Messy Mondays. I enjoy them. I actually met Carlos maybe a month ago, maybe less than a month ago in New York. That was fun. I ran into him. Carlos had basically said himself that he wasn't sold on Stacy. I'm paraphrasing. And basically that essentially he doesn't feel like she's being open. And I guess that was a critique from some of the audience as well. I haven't really had that experience. But Karen does say maybe she'll open up on this trip. So maybe there's something there. But I like me some Stacy. So we're in Lake Norman. I'm like, okay, girl, like, what is this piecemealing of Mia's story that we're getting? But whatever. She says this is where she and Ink moved. Shortly after high school, I guess Ink had a job out there, so they moved out there when they were 19. And she, she has friends out there, so I guess it's substantiated that she lived some type of life out here. And she did have like stories about it. There was a weird part where somebody had asked if Lake Norman was big, and she said yeah, and she was telling us how deep it was. And I'm like, are these Google facts that you looked up, or is this something that people know when they live in the neighborhood? So it felt like she had knowledge of it to back it up, but it also felt like it could have been performative, and she was looking up some quick facts with the Siri just so it made sense that they were at Lake Norman. But nonetheless, it was a beautiful house. I thought it was nice that Wendy got her own bedroom for her birthday and it was decorated nicely. Y'all know I'm all about dynamics and seeing where the stories go. So obviously Wendy and Jacqueline have had Wendy and Mia have had a checkered past. I believe Wendy said specifically that on this episode. So it's nice to see that. I don't know if I want to use the word growth, but growth. We're getting into this trope with Jacqueline, right? And obviously Jacqueline plays a piece into it, and she's explaining how she doesn't want to share a room with Mia. We really went quite a long time without knowing where her room was. I guess there was a suspense factor there, unnecessarily. But she's sharing a room with Mia, and she's not necessarily happy, and she doesn't want to like be in Mia's shadow, right? She wants to step out. So maybe that will highlight why she's been so thirsty this season. But I think anybody could have guessed that. And then I also thought, like, damn, the producers really did give a stiff talking to the Giselle honey and tell her that her job was on the line, because for her to like come all the way out here and then she's like, okay, I'm here for the night, but then I gotta leave tomorrow for my girls' cap and gown ceremony, then I'm coming back. I'm like, oh, baby, you working overtime. Okay, got it. So they start talking about this sidekick thing at lunch that, Wendy allegedly heard on the plane. And Jazzy's like, girl, I never said that. But Jacqueline starts this whole theatrical thing of like, girl, I'm the whole meal and blah, blah, blah. And gets up and she's twirling around and she's like looking me from face to my body, da, da, da. And Jazzy's like, more so from the neck up. But, girl, whatever. And then interestingly enough, right, like she says it in her confessional. Then a little while later, Karen says it in her confessional that Jacqueline is really obsessed with Mia. Again, I haven't seen the evidence of that. Again, to reference Carlos King, I was watching a little bit. Did I finish? I think I finished. I was watching a little bit of his Messy Mondays yesterday, and I think it was the viewers in the comments that were more so saying, and I think it's been over Twitter, I guess, that were more so saying that it seems like Jacqueline takes this jilted lover approach when it comes to her relationship with Mia. So obviously she came on the show with Mia, and Mia was really just not very supportive of her on the show, and she was really kind of weird to her. We all saw that happen. And so, yes, I get that context, but I think what people are saying is Jacqueline has a weird, maybe codependence to this relationship with Mia, and so it hurt her in a particular way. And so the way that she is reacting is kind of like a jilted lover, and that's where they get the obsession thing from. So in that context, I can kind of more so understand. All in all, that just says to me like Jacqueline's a very emotional person, and she's peculiar. Jazzy clarifies, like, I didn't say that. What I said was this trip will be better because Mia has a better sidekick now, and she was referencing herself. So then Giselle makes this joke of like, okay, they're battling for best sidekick, like whether it's Jacqueline or Jazzy, and I forgot that Jazzy even came in as a friend of Mia. But I also didn't take it as that. Like, I don't really think there's gonna be a bidding war to be besties with Mia. I don't. This is no shade, but I don't really see that level of hierarchy from Mia on the show, so I don't think that that's important. And I think that Jazzy comes in and kind of stands alone. I think that Jacqueline has the potential to come in and stand alone. The makings of the potential, the concept of a plan to stand alone. I didn't see that as a big deal. But Jacqueline does note that she thinks Jazzy is a pick-me, so I wonder if that's going to show itself at all in this season. So they bring up, which I just said before, that Mia's basically going to have some friends from Lake Norman come over to celebrate Wendy's birthday thing that they're having that night. And somebody's like, oh, so those are your friends too, Jacqueline? Jacqueline's like, well, I'm more so cordial with them. So now Mia's giving more tea of Jacqueline's like she always does. And she's like, you know, well, she used to be cool with one of them, but there was this big fallout and she like left the group chat or whatever. And so Stacey's like, well, girl, oh my God, Jacqueline, like you seem to get into it with a lot of people. And so this is Karen's segue. And I'm like, I wonder if Stacey knew that or if Stacey was just being a kiki. But you know, Stacey's quite the kiki. I like Stacey. Karen's like, well, yeah, girl, you're really not the best of friends. And I really don't appreciate you coming to the group saying that I called you and I was drunk. Because actually, that conversation that you're referencing, you called me for some advice and I was trying to help you out, homegirl. So she proceeds to go in on Jacqueline. And I just couldn't even imagine the word empathy as it pertains to Jacqueline in this conversation because I felt like she deserved it. Not that she deserved to cry, right? Like if she's emotional and that's her natural reaction and she was actually hurt and you know like her feelings are hurt so she cried. I don't think she deserved that. I think the lashing though, like the beforehand that Karen gave her, I think it was rightfully deserved. I understand this whole trope of like just like I don't really agree with the trope of Mia being, I don't really agree with the trope of Jacqueline being obsessed. I really, in general, yes, Karen can deflect, but I don't really know if I agree with that trope this season. I think it's just a low hanging fruit, if I'm going to be honest. And what I mean by that is, yes, Karen deflects, but I don't think her saying, oh, I have this court case and oh, I want to see who's behind me. Those don't count as deflections to me. And her calling Jacqueline out, they kind of count as if you guys are gonna push this trope on me, let's dig a little deeper, right? Because we've already done the deflection thing. Everybody knows that I deflect. So if there's supposed to be this thing of maybe Karen has trauma, and because of that trauma, Karen has a drinking problem, and Karen doesn't want to be honest about this drinking problem. Let's push it a little bit further. Let's just stop sprinkling the deflection word around like parsley. That I just can't really get into. And it was interesting to me that Giselle would jump in and say, well, when Jacqueline said it, I didn't take it as her being malicious. And my whole thing is like, well, she was basically saying that Karen was drunk when she called her and she smirked when she said it. So even if we don't want to use the word malicious, it wasn't with kindness. It wasn't with concern. So, girl, what are you talking about? So that gets Karen even more riled up, rightfully so. And she essentially tells Jacqueline, girl, you're a liar and I don't mess with you like that. Like, it is what it is. And that just gets Jacqueline very upset. And they did highlight, again, from Carlos King. I might as well bring him on as a guest because I got a lot of information last night. I guess that's what happens when you record late. But they were saying, and I already knew this anyway, no shade. But basically, Karen is the one that allegedly Karen pushed for Jacqueline to come back on the show because it wasn't happening, and Karen was kind of the only lifeline that Jacqueline had. So obviously, for Jacqueline to come onto the show and do this weird thing with Karen and kind of effectuate and facilitate this trope against Karen because of this DUI, that upset the hell out of Karen. So I think that Jacqueline's realizing that she messed up, and I believe that's why she got emotional. But Karen didn't give a fuck. I did think that it was nice to see Mia sticking up for Jacqueline because that's just not something that we ever see. And I guess I'm on a Stacey defense thing this video because I just feel like this whole episode Stacey was showing why she wasn't boring. I thought it was absolutely hilarious that we get the dynamic shift of like Kiana saying she didn't want to sleep in a bunk bedroom with Stacey, and then Stacey shows up and she's like, "Girl, this is my first girls trip. These are my first bunk beds. I got a roommate. I don't really know Kiana that well. We can get to know each other. I'm having a great time. I cannot wait." And Kiana's like, "Girl, well, since you're being so optimistic about it," and I like that honesty too, right? Like, this is reality TV. We're supposed to be getting your reality. And when it comes to your reality, that means like your real reactions to things, your real opinions. And Kiana's like, well, girl, I wasn't really messing with it. But since you're being optimistic about it, let's do this together. Hell, Stacey was even excited about what they had, Pac-Man in the hallway. Like, it was hilarious. And we get this brief conversation between Jazzy and Jacqueline. And we don't get the context, but I think it's clear that Jacqueline is like, having a conversation with her, and she's like, well, girl, when you said the neck up thing, like that probably bothered her, and Jacqueline wanted to make sure that she wasn't body shaming her. So fine, I understand that. And Jazzy's like, girl, had nothing to do with body shaming. I'm just saying you're a pretty girl, all things aside. And Jacqueline's like, well, were you saying you didn't like my outfit? And again, more honestly, she's like, well, I don't like your outfit. But again, no, that's not what I was talking about. So I'm living. I found it even funny where she was like, well, girl, it's an airport outfit. Like, those are the funny conversations we want to hear. We get this brief scene with Ashley on the phone on the balcony talking to whoever the hell she's talking to about some hosting gigs and how she wants to host drag shows and entertainment shows and stuff and got to make my money because I'm a single mother and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, girl, yeah, like, I get it, but This is the line of work that you've chosen. This is what's gonna like pay your bills. Okay. Again, I thought the house was beautiful, so I just kept saying that, and I'm gonna keep saying that. Lake Norman, very random location, but beautiful home. We get Stacy and Karen talking, and I really like this dynamic because again, Karen brought Stacy on the show, and they're actually friends, which I guess is what we're supposed to believe. You never know. But essentially, they start having a conversation, and it's nice to see them check in because this is like the roots of where Stacy came in. So we didn't just get the introduction of them when they had it with Viv, right? We now get them like checking in with each other outside of the group. I like stuff like that. And they talked briefly about something that I just quite frankly didn't give a damn about, but Stacy's divorce and the fact that they're going to mediate first, which is typically what people do. And essentially, now that they're getting to this stage, she's going to have to tell her daughter that there is a divorce on the horizon, but they're waiting until they have a final agreement to tell their child. I can understand the thought behind it, but I definitely agree with Karen when she says you don't want to be a liar to your daughter because at that point that means you're manipulating the situation. I believe that, and of course it's your child, so you want to protect them. But I think at 8, she's not an idiot. She knows more than you think she knows. So I believe that you give people all of the information and you allow them to make their own decisions. So I would have to agree with Karen in this situation. Karen shifts gears, and thank God because I just don't really want to hear about that. But Karen says, "Girl, I talk to the girls and they have some feedback." And Stacey's like, "What's the feedback?" She's like, "Girl, I'm gonna tell you. Slow down. I got you." And she's like, essentially, they think you're boring. And I just immediately started to think how much of an impact conversations like this on camera can like literally positively impact these casts where we start losing the plot, right? Like you get a new girl that comes on, she's not really doing that well, and then it's kind of like it goes off the rails from there because you don't want to break that fourth wall and be like, girl, you're boring, like you're not bringing it to the group. Like that could have helped a lot of people, even NECA, and I don't really know that NECA had anything to give to this show. But imagine somebody being able to sit down and have a conversation with her and saying, girl, you need to really kind of change your approach with the group. I feel like that could have changed things because at the end of the day, it's an ensemble cast, and you need those interactions to get it to hell together. So I think that this was like gonna move stuff even before seeing the rest of the episode and the rest of the season. I feel like this conversation alone is gonna be what Stacey needs to be like. Okay, let me get in gear and let me be myself and let me because at the end of the day, it's not she knows what she's doing. She's filming a TV show. So it's not a conversation of get to know the ladies better, be good friends. It's partially that, but it's more so, girl, we filming a TV show. You need to bring it. So I say all that to say I'm glad that Karen didn't mince words and she used the word boring. Because it's like, yeah, girl, let's go. And I did appreciate that Karen didn't say any names and she's like, it's a general consensus. Like, it is what it is, girl. Let's just, pull it together and keep it moving. That's what a real anchor of the show needs to and will do. I like what Stacey's approach is, right? Like she takes these things, and you can honestly see that. And I think I saw a little bit of that on the boat when it was with Ashley, and they had their clashing, but we'll get to that. But Stacey takes things, and she has quick responses, and she's ready with it. She's like, "Girl, I'm different. Like I'm joyous, and I'll just be living my life and giving glory to God, you know." And they show that clip of her selling this Jesus piece on the TV show. So she's like, girl, they're just not used to this. It is what it is.
Come to my planet. It's marvelous.
Again, I live for Stacy. So speaking of the boat, they get on this boat to do like a night cruise around the lake, and then they're gonna come back for dinner. I'm not mad at that. I think it's because obviously they're looking for opportunities to put these ladies in a room together and film and get some conversation going. And I'm looking at the setup of it before they even get started. I'm like, okay, we're on this small, super small boat, and we're gonna have to figure this out. So I'm like, the girls are gonna have to get into it, into something. This is gonna require work. Immediately, we got this side of the room, and it's Kiana and it's Stacy and it's Jazzy. I just love seeing this link up. And Kiana and Stacy are just keying constantly. Like they key, ka, 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 constantly. And it's just fun to see, A, because it's brand new. B, because they're two of the new ladies, the two new housewives, and C, because they're roommates on this trip and they're getting to know each other. So it's just a fun dynamic. And while they're kicking, Stacey is at work, girl. Like, she's like, okay, Kiana, like, who are you not vibing with the most on the trip? Like, what's your tea? Or in the group in general. And she's like, obviously Ashley, and she starts talking about the GNA event, and I'm like, okay, now we're getting into this. It felt like a natural thing, right? Like, not like it's the storyline or the theme of the season that she's gonna beef with Ashley because of what happened, but it's a natural conversation with her and the girls on the side, the new girls on the side, and she's like, this did happen, right? And charges have been pressed both by the state and by myself. So, that's what's happening. We touch it and we go. I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm wondering, how big is this boat? And Ashley don't hear y'all talking. So then I also thought, very produced, because obviously, I mean, Ashley's at the end of that other conversation. So I'm pretty sure she can hear inklings of what's happening, especially if she hears her name. But she is, properly engaged in another conversation as well. So it's done well, but I'm like, there's some TV magic going on here because Ashley can hear exactly what's going on, but she's still choosing not to engage. So kudos to them. While they're doing that, Ashley is well at work, which I think is cool. And she's asking Mia about, I guess there was a New Year's Eve photo that Mia took with the kids and with Gordon, but Ink was also there. They're asking, they're getting into the conversation. Questions that I do believe need answers, right? Like, why are you guys getting a divorce? Are you divorced yet? And they acknowledge that, G and Mia are still technically married. So it's obviously got to be a lot on G to have to, fake the funk and act like he's cool with being around Mia and her new man. And I also wanted to say last episode, and I'll say this episode because it applies, I believe that it's weird to, A, still be married and have your new man around your kids, subpart, to have that happening, especially if your kids have disclosed to their father that they've seen you in bed with that new man or intimate in any matter. And subpart, if there is a paternity dispute between these two men, but you're going to continue to have the two men around your child at the same time or even at all. I think that that's just all completely weird, and I don't agree with it. And honestly, have no issue with Giselle saying in her confessional it has to be confusing for the kids because I agree. Kiana starts asking Stacey, we're back over here, about the whole dating thing and what the information is, because I guess Stacey hadn't shared that with the group. And Stacey, starts to explain, and she's like, yeah, Ashley really put my tea out there. This is when we learned that Ashley can definitely hear them, obviously. And she's like, Stacey, I didn't come out like that. Like, it's not like I said that you were out here getting your freak on. Like, I literally just said that you had a new friend. And Ashley does clarify, hey, like, I wasn't trying to be a mess. Like, I do understand Stacey's point that she doesn't understand now. Stacey's point that, she didn't really want to talk about her new man because she is still married and she has this sensitive thing with her child. So I understand that. But even still, I think that, that's going to weigh on her and she needs to get it out. So I can appreciate that because I do feel like last episode, I didn't think that Ashley was being messy either, even when they played it back. But I also understood where Stacey was coming from. And I agree with y'all. Like, I do think that the interaction at the gym was weird with old boy. I don't like to jump and question anybody's sexuality necessarily, but I do think that there was something there. Even still, though, I think that Stacey's viewpoint, which is the one that matters because she's a housewife. I think Stacey's viewpoint that she's still married, but she has kind of moved on. Like, you can't just jump and throw that at the world, right? Especially if they're public figures in Potomac or whatever the hell. So I get where she was coming from as well. And I'm glad that Ashley was able to get to that point to understand. And I guess that, they're talking about Stacey's celibacy thing again, and there's a part where they're kind of not buying it, more so like Giselle, and I think it was Mia. I don't know why that's important. I think that they're giving Stacey a little bit too much. That's my personal opinion. And then I thought it was fun. I love when they have side conversations and they actually bring them to the group and discuss them. That doesn't always happen, and it should. But Karen brings up that she did have the conversation with Stacey about them, calling her boring. And Stacey's like, yeah, girl, who called me boring? And Giselle's like, well, girl, I called you stiff. And Wendy's like, girl, it was Mia. I believe it was Mia that called you boring. So I thought that was fun. And Mia does own up to it and give us some context and say, they were at breakfast and the ladies, whoever was there, we didn't get a flashback. I was expecting one. But the ladies came to a consensus that she was uninteresting. And Wendy's clip of saying like that, her literally calling her boring and uninteresting is diabolical, like, had me on the floor. If Wendy is the comedic relief this season, I'm going to take it. And I like how Karen came to her defense and said, hey, like, she's a kiki because she was sitting there kikiing. She has been kikiing since we got here. She's been kikiing since she got on the show. I think that's why I like her because I love a kiki and a cackle. And Stacey's, being herself. And Karen's like, this is the Stacey that I know. Like, she's a lot of fun, but also she's going through a lot. So, yes, it's going to take her some time to come on this show and talk about her story because if we think about it, she has talked about her story. She's going through this divorce. She's dating this guy that's not trying to have sex with her, and she's celibate. So she's told us all of this, and y'all are still scrutinizing that story. So it's got to be quite hard to open up in that type of manner. But we do get a clip of, even though Ashley says she understood, we do get a clip of her, and I like her being forthcoming, right? In the confessional saying basically everything that she gets as it pertains to all the questions about her marriage and all that weirdness, she's going to give it to Stacey. And I can appreciate that. I think that's fine because even in the moment on the boat when she's doing it and Stacey is responding and, giving it right back to her, and I feel like she's right upbeat with the girls, you can tell that Ashley's like, okay, she's clocked in. Cool, fine, whatever. I'm going to challenge you and just give it back. I feel like that's the name of the game. So I live. So we get back to the house, and now they're having dinner. Honestly, the boat scene, I think, was spectacular. We're having dinner now, and Giselle opens it up. She's like, I'm going to get this out, obviously, because I'm about to leave. I like how she kind of addressed Wendy first and the permission received from Wendy. Like, hey, Wendy's birthday is tomorrow. We spoke about this. She wanted me to bring it up before her birthday, so now I'm bringing it up. Wendy's like, yes, that is what happened. So then she moves on to Karen. And I'm like, wow, Giselle is really a grown up. Like, I had no idea. And that's no shade, no tea. But it's just like, I hadn't heard her have many grown up conversations like this. It just felt so refreshing because she's still being herself, but she's being respectful. And she gets to the nitty gritty of it. Like, it's not all this weird semantic stuff. She's just like, Karen, I feel like I've been a friend to you and you're not being a friend to me. And, behind the scenes, we understand, right? Like, you've had this DUI. Giselle has technically not really been on her ass about it. There have been moments where she's made snarky remarks, absolutely, but she's not pushing Karen for that information, right? Like maybe a Ashley would or like Mia has done, right? So I would have to agree with that. She really has been giving Karen a break, whereas Karen hasn't really been giving that grace to Giselle. And I will agree that Karen is on one this season. She is. But again, like I said, I was going to talk about Karen is a Taurus. And yes, Karen is going to deflect, but again, that's low hanging fruit. I think the biggest piece to it that people need to realize with Karen, she's always kind of had to be on the defense on this show. And I'm not saying rightfully so, everybody should get their turn, but Karen has always had to be on the defense. And Karen knows that she's at work, and Karen knows that these ladies are not really her friends. So she's not going to open up to them. She's going to be guarded and she's going to be prepared to clap back. And I'm enjoying it. All in all, Karen does say that she's sorry. She does acknowledge that Giselle has been there for her and she wants the group to know that. She does still make it a kiki and a cackle just like a Taurus would. And that's how I know she's on one this season. She's like, girl, look, I do apologize for, affecting you as it pertains to your dad's event, but I'm not going to take accountability for the way that you acted. I raised you better than that. And I literally felt like I was looking into a mirror because I would have done the same thing. Honestly, like, Karen is a mess this season. I'm living for it. Lean into it, baby girl. Do your big one. But even still, I think Giselle has that same level of snarky in her, right? Like, she can dish it, but they'll still have a little humor to it as well. I think she would have done something similar. So she gets annoyed by it because they're having a serious conversation. But I think she understands the severity of it, and she still does double down and say, I want you to understand that this is not acceptable for me and we need to move forward. And Karen agrees. So they did it. Giselle leaves. And I thought it was so super nice and so super fun, especially given the weird stuff that we've seen in the past seasons, that Giselle was able to say, I'll tell my kids that you guys said hi. I love that. Like, this shows that they're just in a much better place in this group. And Giselle seems like she's in just a good place and she's in a good mood. So I love it. I just thought it was extremely funny when the girls come in. It was literally like, baby, they're running a show out there, honey. Giselle was leaving and the new ladies came on in. It's like they was standing on the side like, give us a second, lady who's gonna bring y'all in. And they come in and we're, introducing. And Wendy's like, they're here for me.
They came here to celebrate me. Me.
That shit was hilarious. You could tell on Stacey's face, she like gets up, like Giselle is leaving, she gets up to introduce herself to the girls, and she's kind of looking like this. She's like, baby, this TV life is moving quick. And ooh, this juxtaposition was just crazy, baby. Like the parallel here. We get, like, as the ladies are coming in, I know I said that 1,000 times, but it's a lot of moving parts at once. Karen's got this confessional looking stunning in that short cut and that blue. And she's like, yeah, ooh, girl. I had went out with Mia and with her friend Joy, girl. We had a ball, honey. And she like, I really like these ladies. They are Kiki and a cackle. She's like, honestly, Jacqueline don't fit into this group. And Mia will not have a problem with me saying that. Okay, girl, like, whoo. I'm like, oh, girl, you did have you a good time, girl. We gonna hear right on about that, Karen. So funny enough, we're at a party for Wendy with all of Mia's friends. Mia's like, let's go around the table and tell funny stories about Mia. And we're like, okay, girl, to be expected, but do your big one, girl, go ahead. And this is where I felt like the editing was really kind of just being weird and posturing against Jacqueline. I'm like, okay, if it's real, y'all, let it be real. Don't try to sell it to us. But there's, clips of them talking about how they know Mia, and then they kind of chop it in a weird space, like mid talk of one of the ladies, as if Jacqueline had cut one of the ladies off and was like, well, I've known Mia since the sandbox. And I just don't believe it happened that way. I think they kind of all went around the table and did that. But I think it goes with the storyline, right, of like, oh, Jacqueline's obsessed with Mia. So that part I feel like was some weird choppy editing and posturing. But also, even if it was chopped weird, which I do believe it was, there could have still been some like positioning of like natural positioning of Jacqueline. Like, yeah, I have known her since the sandbox because that's natural. You get to a table of friends of your friends, and maybe you're not close to them, so maybe you do want to state your claim. So maybe it was a bit of that as well. But then Mia starts in on this story, and I just love the dramatics of them starting the story and then going into commercial and then ending it with a bang. Like, I was living. But Mia's like, well, yeah, Karen, like, after we went out, same story Karen was just telling, different perspective, TV magic. After we went out, we went out with Joy, and Joy's like, we did go out, we did go out. She's like, you actually butt dialed us, Karen. Joy's like, you did butt dial us, I forgot about that. And I'm like, okay, ladies, we might need to call Joy for the show. And, we get the commercial break, we come back, we replay it. Mia's like, yeah, girl, you butt dialed us, and you said, those ladies think I'm with Ray. Something we were not expecting, honey. Now, this I'm not mad at. Like I said, take us to a new level. I don't want to hear about the deflection, but I'm cool with hearing about, Karen possibly sneaking and geeking. So I'm excited to see where this goes. And the setup of that, I think, was gold. Again, I don't think that Mia is so super, like, pivotal as it pertains to hierarchy on the show. However, I do think that she provides some good entertainment, and I think that she gets it. I think she grows each season. I think she gets it. So I'm excited for the mess. This episode was really, 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 really good, and it really makes me not. Honestly, I feel bad. I'm trying to be consistent, y'all. It's just been a lot going on, but I don't feel bad about doing the last episode. Like I told y'all how I felt about the key things from last episode, but this one. Now this episode was good, for sure. And I'll see y'all in the next one.